So thanks very much, David. So I'm really delighted to welcome you to the 2025 CSG conference. It's really fantastic to see so many colleagues here, many of whom I know from the past and from present as well, and seeing wider system partners as well gathered here to listen and think about digital in the context of digital in the current day and how we plan forward for the future. We've really come together at a critical moment of our journey to think about digital transformation. Crucially, this is not just about talking about technology for technology's sake, but it has to be thinking about it in terms of how it can be harnessed to make it better to serve our patients, support our staff, and build a more resilient, efficient, and equitable systems. Basically, as the event chair, I'm going to try and guide us through this day and make sure we run on time. There are a lot of talks, and I will be trying to keep the talks to time and making sure we do run smoothly through the day. You're going to see a lot of me going up and down, I think, sadly. I'm sorry for that straight away. But firstly, before we go into the main talks, I'm just going to share a few thoughts that I have around digital, basically. So this is where I am, in some respects. And many of you may recognize the Walkman from your days. Some of you, I think, looking around, might not recognize a Walkman. But this, at that time, was a technology left for a generation who had nothing to say. That's how Der Spiegel reported the Walkman. The Walkman was thought to be something that was going to lead to antisocial behavior. So much so, when it was first invented, the first Walkman that was released had 2 headphone sockets, not 1. It didn't sell. That's where technology has been, and that's where technology, in some respects, is. There is a lot of fear about what is coming and what there is currently in use. And we've got to get through that fear because it is used all the time. We have our phones in our pockets. We are using this technology routinely throughout the day, and we need to think how we harness this on a daily basis to help our patients. It is going to be as ubiquitous as the Walkman. AI is here, ChatGPT is here. We need to think, how do we use this in a routine way to help our patients so it doesn't become harmful for them? We know for London, we're a very diverse, growing and complex city. In many ways, we continue to grow at about 1% of population growth per year. By 2035, we're going to be 9.5 million people living in London. We're also growing disparity within London, and we have to address that inequality that we are seeing that is happening across London and think about how digital can bridge that inequality for us, for our children, and for those living in London, and think about what we can do to use digital to bridge that divide. I really don't need to tell this audience about the needs for mental health in London. You will all have experienced this every day of the growing needs there are across London. We know just yesterday there was a psychiatric morbidity study that showed an 18.9% increase since 2014 to 25.8% in 2024 of the growth in mental health conditions for young people aged 16 to 24. But mental health needs across the population are significant for all ages. We know that we struggle to meet all those needs every day for our population and to improve access and accessibility to all our evidence-based treatments. And yet we also know that every year we are making improvements in access. We are making improvements to address those inequalities, and we are trying to make changes to address those needs constantly throughout the population. But these needs are growing, and we need to act faster than we are changing within London. We also know that these are the figures since COVID, that there's an increasing demand on our services throughout London. A 67% increase in people sent out of area, 24% increase in adults accessing community mental health services, 25% increase in adults accessing NHS talking therapies. These are constantly increasing at the moment, and we need to therefore start to think very differently about how we address these increasing needs across our population. If we don't, then we're going to struggle to deliver a successful mental health system for London. These are the backdrop for our conversation today. This is what we need to bear in mind when we're thinking about everything we do and all the discussions today of how we can use digital to think about how we can address these needs and these growing needs, for the hope that technology is going to be part of that solution to these figures and to reduce the distress amongst our population. So today is really about coming together, exploring the potential for how digital technology should help design, develop, and transform services to meet the mental health needs of London. Though they're part of a key picture, we don't want this just to be about talking about electronic patient records. We've learned the lessons that poorly designed and implemented technology can reduce productivity, making the working lives of clinicians more frustrating, not less. I can think, and as I was writing this, I was thinking, not too far away, and not as far as Camberwell, I will hasten to add before anyone thinks that's where I'm talking, that actually only a few years ago, as a clinician, if I want to see a face-to-face patient, my first face-to-face patient, I had to log in 4 times for that appointment. 4 logins for one patient before seeing them. If I wanted to see them online, it was 6 logins. It took me 20 minutes to start the clinic in the morning, basically, just to go through those logins. That is where technology has been, is in some places, however it's changing. We know that now technology can actually improve the clinical productivity. We know that there are technological solutions that reduce that time taken for clinicians and improve our productivity and improve the efficiency and how we see patients. Let's get to a point where we're using the power of collaboration regionally to solve those shared problems that we have for the population of London, digitally once for London, rather than 9 times or potentially 8 times in the future. Psychiatry and mental health has been at the forefront of using technology. We've always used technology for what we do. Teletherapy has been around since the 1960s. Some of us might have been involved in some of the teletherapy. I used some of the teletherapy back in the 1990s and was involved in some of the clinics which were using teletherapy at that time. This is not a new technology using Teams for patients. This is an old technology. Some of the problems that were talked about at that time about not being able to see below the neck, we've talked about that. What do you do about safeguarding? That was talked about in the 1990s. This is not a new thing. Technology we see now is not new. Most of it has been around many years. We think about virtual reality. Well, it's been around since the 1990s. Difference being at that time it cost tens of thousands for the equipment. Now it costs several £100s. We're using this now. We need to think how we make more use of it routinely in our practice all the time. The future of clinical care is going to be about how we involve the use of multiple technologies, and we really need to think about how we embrace this every day within our practice. Smartphones. Every one of you will be carrying a smartphone. I presume there'll be someone on a dumb phone, I'm so sure, out there, but most people will be carrying a smartphone. Whilst it's brought some difficulties to society, and perhaps particularly for young people's mental health, the development of the internet and smartphones has brought significant potential capability about detection, diagnosis, management of health issues, including mental health, into almost everyone's pockets. Add in new sensors, wearable technologies, and we can further augment that potential. These are not expensive technologies anymore. Wearables are cheap and easy to access and should be being used routinely. There's a plethora of digital mental health apps that have emerged, offering tools for self-care, mood tracking, medication management, meditation, CBT, you name it. It's there. It is already around and it is already being used. We need to think how we harness this in a routine way for our pathways of care that we deliver. We know Oxleys are using Luminova. We know that if you design that technology to be gamified, then it makes a difference. People will use it to help their mental health. These are not new technologies. I've got an app on my phone that I use it less as a chief exec, I have to say. Open Evidence. Anyone, a clinician using Open Evidence? Open Evidence, fantastic. It's New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, and Mayo Clinic, basically, has your whole evidence base on it. You ask a clinical question, it will come back with minutes with the answer, evidence-based answer to that clinical question. It will give you a treatment plan, it will give you your plan on an app. It takes minutes. It is free for every doctor to use. It is there already. I think junior doctors call it their cheese and onion now. It's the old clinical handbook of medicine, which is their cheese and onion, and they're now starting to use open evidence. Open evidence is replacing that for people, and that's where we need to engage in this. Across the capital, colleagues are using virtual reality as an additional tool as well to support patients. Our colleague Aileen O'Brien in South West London St George's is trialling the use of VR to support patients in psychiatric intensive care for relaxation and de-escalation. Colleagues at King's College and SLAM have been working on a number of interventions over the years around exposure therapy in virtual worlds. And Oxley's have been trialling VR to support skills development for patients in forensic services. Colleagues elsewhere, I was up in Birmingham last night, not a great journey up and down, but anyway, trains aren't great. They're using VR for staff wellbeing. And there are interventions that hospitals are using to use VR for staff wellbeing as well. We need to think about how we embrace this. So AI, we're going to probably talk a lot about AI at times during this whole day. And AI can be used really about augmenting and think about it rather than artificial intelligence, think about it as augmented intelligence. That's how you need to start to think about AI. AI augments how clinicians can work, and there's significant potential for AI in mental health. We're going to hear today about a trust already trialing ambient voice technology. Again, not a new technology. It's been around over 8-10 years now. Ambient voice technology has been around a while. Where it's going is it's incorporating things like open evidence into it, so it gives the clinicians clinical prompts to help them decide what they need to do. It orders the actual appointments. It orders the tests. It does all of this without need for you to go in and do all the booking. That is where those technologies are going. There are some systems in America where that is already happening. That the OpenAI, the Scribe technology, does all of the work that you would be doing normally by just filling in forms or on your EPR. We also know that AI can be used about analyzing video and audio technologies. So there's Blue Sky AI, which analyzes facial technology. There's Mood Capture over in America, which basically predicts from facial expression. So as you log into your phone, it is being used to show whether you're starting to deteriorate with your mood disorder. This is where it's going. That facial recognition is there. We use it every day when we log into our phones. But the use of these technologies will transform and potentially help us prevent deterioration of our patients and help improve their care. Chatbots integrate into mental health services to provide immediate support and interventions. Singapore use this routinely. Chatbots with CBT interventions, evidence-based interventions sitting behind them, run by clinicians. Adolescents use them, have reduced their impact and demand into mental health services through the use of chatbots. Again, we need to think, where are chatbots within our services currently? Nowhere. ChatGPT, people are commonly using this now to gain their health advice. It's not very healthy, what you get. If you're 20 to 30, it's the most common use of ChatGPT is for a life advisor now. Actually a coach, and they will use it to help them with their moods, with managing anxiety, managing stress. They're using ChatGPT in a way we need to get into because it is not sending the right evidence-based outcomes to those patients. We've also got things like ecological momentary analysis, digital phenotyping. This is also there to improve and protect and prevent people from deteriorating. These are new technologies that are coming in. They've been around a while, but they're being implemented. Again, Singapore uses to prevent deterioration of serious mental health issues. Through data mining, they will predict very accurately whether a patient is about to deteriorate. And so the mental health teams can get in before they actually end up in hospital. However, technology isn't going to do it on its own. You have to think about culture and practice, so the processes that sit behind it, the people. We need to learn from other industries, whether that be banking, whether it be airlines. We need to think about other technologies, other industries that are using technologies and think about how to design that understand patient needs, that are user-centric in how they are delivered. We need to think about how we improve engagement with staff on those technologies and with patients on technologies we use, to foster a real sense of ownership and engagement amongst the users. When patients see their feedback, that it's valued and incorporated, that it's trusted and believed, that the staff believe and trust the data they see. And we need to get to a point where that is just the norm. We need to understand, and we need to understand the staff needs, and we need to address these. This is as much about understanding their technology, but also understanding their fears and beliefs around the technology themselves. We need to use these to reduce organizational risk. Again, using AI, you can do clinical governance, you can do audits without the need to actually go in and manually do the audits. So you can move clinical governance into a whole new domain of quality management without all the manual processes that we currently rely on. There are three big shifts that we're going to hear more about from Emma and from Tom. We'll hear more about them, I think, next week as well within the 10-year plan. But we need to think about this within everything we do: sickness to prevention, hospital to community, and analog to digital. These are the challenges we have faced, not just today, but for many years and continue to face today. We know if you look at the population health trials, those started in the 60s. Why did they fail in the 60s? They failed because they didn't have the technology behind them to deliver the data in real time, to allow them to adapt treatments and pathways quickly to respond to population needs. The first population health trials were down in Lambeth, again failed because they couldn't get the data quickly enough. They were getting data on a weekly basis manually at that time, was how they were running them. But even on a weekly basis, they couldn't get that to change the practice. But technology saturates every aspect of our lives. We can't move toward preventive care in a community without investing in technology, people and processes to take us from analog to digital. Emma's going to talk more about the mental health strategy for London as well later this morning, and digital is a key part of it. I hope, really from this introduction, that I've given why we're focusing on it today. The potential is hugely significant for us. If we don't embrace this now, it will be embraced by others. If we don't start to actually feed into it and start to produce things and technologies that are trusted for our patients, they will use technologies that are not going to give them the evidence-based treatment and cause more harm. We need to step into that space and hold it for ourselves. Before I hand over to Hassan, one of the things we have is so much more in common as 9 organizations, but not 8 yet. 9 organizations, I say hastily. We have so much more in common as organizations than we have as differences. Many of us use the same EPR. Many of us have the same infrastructure problems for our technologies and have to deal with legacy infrastructure and technical debt. Our staff have variable skills and capabilities. This means they're taking many hours to type up notes, they struggle to adopt newer technology, and often there's a sense they're too busy, using old technology to engage in good design for new technology. Our finances are getting tighter and tighter. The cost of change with legacy systems and variable staff capability is high. We need to break this interaction, and that's our challenge. Our challenge is realizing the significant potential that digital technology can make for the 8.8 million that are currently living in London. Let's use today to think how we can get to the point where we're using the power of collaboration regionally to actually solve those shared problems across our trusts and for the population digitally just once for London rather than 8 times. Thank you. So I'm going to hand over now to Hassan. Hassan Chowdhury. Hassan has extensive experience across the digital health sector as an entrepreneur, advisor, lecturer, and on behalf of the UK government. He was Global Digital Health Specialist working for UK Healthcare, and he has a special interest in supporting the NHS to develop a sustainable commercial model, particularly around data and digital. He's currently both Head of Commercial at Great Ormond Street and the Commercial Director at the Health Data Research Hub for Cancer. He's also an expert in residence at the London Institute for Healthcare Engineering at King's College London. Hassan.
Thank you, everybody, and for the warm and generous introduction. When someone comes up on stage and they say they're an expert in digital health, I don't want you to trust them. Because there are no experts in digital health. It's too broad, it's not a thing. And I like to go to the futurists and burst their bubbles, because they need to be grounded. What I'd like to do, and I'm genuinely deeply honored to be invited here, and I am here as a critical friend, and if at the end of this presentation I've added any value, I would like to make you an offer, which is that I'm always happy to have a chat and offer my help. It's yours. So, you'll notice the socks up there. There are 3 mismatches in digital mental health that I want to expose to you. But my goal is to provoke some thought. My goal is to unsettle you. My goal is for you to be knocked off balance on the things you thought you had to do and to change that. Because I think I can see something that you may not see. So that's my objective here. Let's start with a very simple one. Very simple supply and demand. Clearly, there is a disequilibrium between the care that we can provide and the demand coming in. Very simplistically, we should be trying to increase the supply and reduce the demand. What you'll find, and the real mismatch, is almost all of the effort of innovators in digital. Well, actually, let me ask you, where do you think it falls? Is it reducing the demand or trying to smooth and improve the supply? Any thoughts? You'd hope they were reducing the demand. The truth is it's hard to reduce the demand. So most innovators, especially those that are VC-backed, they end up trying to just win the market they can and go with the supply. That's why ambient voice technology is flying. That's why there's more than 100 of them, because they're trying to improve and smooth out the supply, not realizing that many physicians just want to go to the toilet rather than add an extra person in. And at Great Ormond Street, we've done the largest AVT, ambient voice technology trial in the world, and we found that in urgent and emergency care, there's a real desire to see more people. You can see that, but everywhere else, not so much. So, mismatch. This is why everyone is talking about agentic, because it means that the tasks are being eaten up by something that you can trust to do the task. And that's the difference between the agent and the agentic. Agents, you have to sort of Lego them together, and each one will do only what it does. The agentic moves across the system. You're going to hear that over and over and over, although the presentation before me was fantastic. Second mismatch. I could have put quite a few things up here. This is not me picking on you. I'll pregnant pause. This is not me picking on you. I'm not saying that you're the only ones who are bad at demand signaling, but we're all bad at demand signaling. We are unable to tell innovators what we need, why we need it, how we need it. So do you know what they do? They create what they think is needed, and they try and push it up the hill. And they complain. They have the nerve. I've been an innovator, I've had an exit. They complain, oh, it's so hard, it's so hard. And we're at the top of the mountain saying, we need food, we need water, come. It should be like this. We should be pulling them up. By the way, the dream of every startup is product market fit. I'll repeat, the dream of every startup is product market fit. Nobody knows what this means, by the way. And I'll tell you what it means. It means when somebody pulls the product out of your hands. It's when the lemonade stand runs out of lemons and cups and sugar. That's product market fit. That's what startups want. That's what they want. That's not what they get. The heart of it is that we're not very good in healthcare, generally, excuse me, at demand signaling. So what happens? We hunker down like the Beatles in the car while everyone clamors to get to us to sell. It's not what we want. And this is what I mean by the failure, and it is a mismatch. It's a failure for us to work out how to collaborate. But it begins with the demand signal. Horizon scanning. There are lots of people in the world that tell you they scan the horizon. Again, I don't trust them. But when they do tell you about horizon scanning, the failure isn't the scan. It's the inability to articulate. So if you were in a novel and you were a character in the novel, would one of your character traits be that you're articulate? Can you articulate what you need so the horizon makes sense? Again, excuse me, a pregnant pause. Most of us think we're articulate. You are some of the brightest people, and you are articulate. But when it comes to technology and your needs, you actually have to be articulate in more than one way. You have to consider what's coming at you, not as a product, but as a capability. Think about your need and think, what's the heart of that need? And then match them. By the way, that is digital health. It's not in the literature because all the definitions are wrong. And that's why there aren't any digital health experts. If you become better at articulating your needs, you will stop asking for flying cars. Because that's what happens when people who don't know what's on the horizon and can't articulate their needs start to ask for things. And if you knew what was available and what you needed, you'd just ask for a helicopter. Let me go back. I have seen it. People asking for flying cars when they should have asked for a helicopter. Do you understand now why there's a mismatch? In fact, there are three. Supply and demand, pushing rather than pulling, and us not really articulating what we want. If you get this right, we have a chance, because the three shifts, they're not really shifts. They're things we should have done anyway. Whether they're in the plan or not, they were always on the cards. We could never have survived without left shift. We could never have survived without moving from analog to digital or to prevention. Those were on the cards regardless. We need to start owning our own needs and articulating them and then signaling them and doing it collectively and collaboratively. Anything else just puts the cart before the horse. Before I leave, I will say, I could have put other pictures up. One of the pictures I had in mind was of sandpaper and Velcro. I'll let you think, what could that be? Friction. Some friction is bad, but some friction is good because it leads to stickiness. I could have given you an elephant, because sometimes transformation in digital, we try to eat the elephant whole, and it squashes you. I want you to think about what you've got to do, knowing that my offer of help is yours. Thank you.